The research that is done is a very important element of the relationships that members and affiliates, partners have with mediaX at Stanford University. And the graduate students who participate in the research are really an incredible resource at Stanford. I'm really happy to introduce to you Anh-Hoà Truong, who was a Knight Journalism Fellow last year and has been working with mediaX on a number of storytelling, technical storytelling activities, and has a passion himself for studying and telling stories about virtual reality. He will introduce a panel of graduate students. So Anh-Hoà, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Martha. Hi. So, I'm going to do that in the order, if you don't mind. So, ladies first. Andrea Stevenson-Won. So, you are a PhD candidate. You were at the Virtual Human Interaction Lab.
That's right.
And you have new projects afterwards, but we'll see about that. Next to you, we have Bireswar Laha. You're a postdoc scholar, also at the VHIL. Flavia Cristina Gray Rodriguez. She told me not to say the whole name, but I mean, I like the whole name, so you know. You're a PhD student in civil and in environmental engineering, and you're working at the project-based learning lab, the PBL, and you have a booth over there.
Yep.
And next to you, Hassan Karaouni, first-year graduate student in computer science. And next to you is Jean-Baptiste Boin, PhD candidate in electrical engineering at Stanford. So just to begin with, I'm just going to ask you, what are you doing?
So I am actually mic'd. That's the first thing I'm doing. I am at the Virtual Human Interaction Lab, as you said, and my work looks at how we can use nonverbal behavior to both drive novel virtual reality experiences and also to get information about what people's states of mind are as they inhabit these virtual environments, and even when two people are interacting, what we can tell about those interactions based on how people are moving. So I know that you all have been trying the demos out there in the main room, and you've probably noticed that as you're moving around the rooms, at the very, very least, your head is being tracked. So you're moving your head around the room, and we can infer a lot of information about that experience based on where you're moving your head, how you're looking around, and that's the broad area of my study.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm currently in the same lab as Andrea, but my prior research has been into using VR and 3D interaction for analyzing scientific volumetric data sets. So currently I'm getting more involved and trained in psychological research where VR's presence factor is more important. But in my prior work, I looked at the immersion factors of VR, which causes psychological phenomena of presence. And using those immersion factors, how well or how better we can analyze scientific data sets as opposed to just using a regular desktop. So I'll take questions on that. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. So I've been already talking to some of you, and you heard my advisor, Dr. Renate Fruchter, talk earlier. And so if you were here, you know a little bit about what we do. Basically, with the PBL lab, we have this great testbed of globally distributed design teams made up by architects, structural engineers, construction managers. And basically, we give them the tools that they're going to be using in the future, and we study how these really cool new tools, such as virtual reality tools and virtual worlds, impact two things. So we have two lenses. On one hand, the product part of the design, and on the other one, their process. And so in terms of product, basically, we've been talking a lot about rapid prototyping and the change that that has made into the design of all sorts of products, but that we don't have that for buildings, and that virtual reality actually gives us this opportunity of being our rapid prototyping. and in terms of the process, how being in virtual worlds and how using this sort of technologies changes the ways that the teams communicate and they interact and the behavior and the way that they design. So we look a lot into that, and in my research in particular, I'm also looking into how can we take all of these great things that we have learned through the design process into the life cycle of the building.
Hi everyone, my name is Hassan, and I'm very interested in engineering education. So I'm not actually working on a research project. Instead, I'm building a Google Cardboard development workshop to pilot at my high school and at other high schools. To my knowledge, I'm hoping that when I'm done with it, it will be one of the best Google Cardboard high school development workshops in the world. And to qualify that statement, I think it should be pretty easy because I don't know of any other ones that exist. So I think that once I'm done with it, it should be the best by default. But I also know that the Google Cardboard team is here, so definitely correct me if I'm wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong if there are more people working on this too, because I'd like to learn from them. It's a really interesting space to be in. So happy to take questions on why I'm using VR to teach these students, or some of the issues that I've faced so far.
Something I forgot to mention about Hassan, that you are also a leading member of the Rabbit Hole VR Club, which is a Stanford club about VR, and one of your mission in this club is already to teach and to train any students, anyone who would be interested in creating VR content.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so as Anh-Hoà mentioned, I'm a member of a club called Rabbit Hole VR, and we're trying to build up a community around virtual reality development and discussions at Stanford, and it does very closely align with what I'm doing for this workshop.
So hi everyone, my name is Jean-Baptiste Boin. So I'm working as a grad student in Professor Bireswar's lab, and so in the context of my research, so I started this project called Art++, which is a collaboration with the Cantor Museum, which is the museum on the campus. And the goal is actually to make a museum guide, so currently on a tablet, that people can basically get to learn more about art. So it uses augmented reality. It's not VR, only AR, but the point is to add more information about a painting that wouldn't really have caught your interest if you had just seen it in the gallery. So this project is funded also by the Brown Institute for Media Innovation. For the people who don't know about it, so that's an institute which funds some student projects related to media and also technical developments. And if there are some students interested in applying, I would encourage them to. You can discuss with me later. We have also a demo on the other part of the room. If you're interested in this, in trying this project, I would be glad to show you around after this panel is done. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I think that deserves a round of applause first. I just have a very, kind of personal question about that. Is that, could you tell us a bit about the first experience in immersion you had, and that and when you became aware that it was going to be a game-changing field?
So I remember very well the first time that I wore a head-mounted display. So before I like all different varieties of presenting digital content, and my master's was in virtual reality, but it wasn't immersive virtual reality. So we were interacting with 3D content, but it would be on a screen, and multiple people would wear goggles, so kind of a cave environment or a screen where the content would appear three-dimensional. And I thought that was great. I thought that was amazing. But at that university at that time, nobody was doing immersive virtual reality where you wear a head-mounted display. And I went down to the University of North Carolina and did the pit demo, which some of you guys may have done, where you walk over a plank. And just the difference of feeling that my body was in that environment was profound. And I thought that that was about the most interesting tool that I could ever imagine. So I remember that extremely clearly.
Okay, for me, the first time I experienced VR was back in 2008 when it was before my PhD, when I was working for some company, and we got to get trained at this lab at NASA where they had a cave. And the first application I was working on, It was a data visualization application where the ocean seafloor had these bubbles that were rising from the seafloor, and we visualized those and got to look at those in an immersive environment. So the first time I had a view of what it means, it was just amazing. And I visualized that using OpenGL first on a desktop, but then I got to see it with 3D and stereo and everything in front of me, and that was the first time. So from then on, I had many experiences in many projects at many labs, and it has been amazing so far.
Well, in my case, I mean, I talked about the global teamwork class. I actually took the class last year, and it was a complete game changer to be able to be in this virtual world with my team who were all over the world, you know, in Poland, in Sweden, in Atlanta, and getting to meet with them and getting to use the tools. And it was very real to me how this was changing. And then that's how I applied to be in the lab, and now I'm getting to see all the background and getting to use all of the other tools. And the more I see, the more excited I get. I got in April to play with HoloLens and do their holographic academy, and I'm super excited about it. And so the more I see, I think we're getting to a place where this is completely revolutionizing everything that we do, and it's just really exciting to me.
So I first got really interested and hooked by VR about 4 years ago. In my freshman year, I had to take a psych study for one of my classes, and it required us like putting on a headset and pretending like we were flying around a helicopter to go and save somebody. And at first, I remember thinking, you know, this isn't very convincing. I'm flying through buildings and nothing's happening. Also, it was pretty low fidelity. But after a while, when I couldn't find the person that I was supposed to save as a part of the study, I started noticing that like my palms were sweating, and that's something that like never happens to me. And I was like, what the heck? Like I'm so immersed in this that it's getting this physical response out of me. And that's the moment when I realized that it was a pretty interesting platform and something that could be very engaging to people. So a bit of a weird way to get involved, but ever since then I've been seeing more and more immersive experiences that can really engage people.
Yeah, so for me, I guess that's a bit different because I'm working on AR, which is kind of related to VR. I mean, the line is getting more and more like blurry, but it was more like the idea of visiting a place. For example, you imagine ruins or something, like what would it look like if it was like, what did it look like at the time it was built? And you could imagine like if you put like some kind of head-mounted display or something like, and really getting to understand like what the people are living through. So that would be like a really compelling experience, and to like some extent that's something that we want to deliver to users, of course, like at a lower scale. Yeah, obviously, like in terms of immersion, that's pretty different to like real VR. And but I think we're getting there. We have like better and better like goggles, for example, like yeah, the HoloLens that was mentioned. They have their like physical shortcomings, but I think that soon we'll be able to have like this really cool like immersive world where you interact with actual like virtual objects in the real world.
So yeah, the technology is getting better. It's kind of easier and easier also to do research and projects about VR and AR, but what are the main challenges you can face right now doing this kind of work?
One of them's almost over, right? It's been very expensive and inaccessible. And that's when I came to the Virtual Human Interaction Lab, I had no expectation that I would be able to buy a device like with my own personal money that I could use at home. So I think that was the challenge, is that it was always something in the future that was going to be used at home or be used in the clinic that could be used inexpensively, and that has suddenly changed. So I feel like I'm looking for the second biggest challenge, because the biggest one just went away.
So what is the second biggest?
The second biggest one is that when you're explaining to people how powerful virtual reality is, it's hard for people to really understand it unless they try it. So I think for me, I have to wave my arms around a lot when I'm describing my work to people that haven't tried virtual reality. Because if I say, I will have you do a demo where you walk over a plank and you're like he was saying, that your palms will get sweaty and you will tremble because it's such an immersive experience. people believe it once they've tried it, but it's always that like gulf of belief before they've tried it. So.
And we have a very similar issue. So in our case, talking to the construction industry, which is, let's just say, very, technologically forward, and it's kind of afraid to take new things. One of the biggest things, I think, has been just taking away the image that virtual reality is a game, and virtual worlds are a game, and this is a gaming platform, and how can I do real work with that game? And so getting them to realize that this is much more than a game, that this is actually something that you can use every day, that you can use in your work, and that it's going to change the way that you work. Just explaining that is very difficult, and I think it's something where you're saying, it's like even those who have tried it sometimes have tried it as a game, and so going beyond that is very difficult. And if you haven't tried it at all, it's even, it's much harder to get them to.
Just to add to Flavia's, I think a big challenge for VR is knowing what are the benefits of VR. And this has been a topic of research for more than 2 decades now. And talking about the benefits of VR, research has been in 2 areas primarily. So one is VR used as presence, like in psychological fields, or the factors of VR as immersion factors, which includes field of view, stereo, other factors of immersion. And also there are other sensory components, not only visual, like sound, and haptics, and other gustatory and olfactory things are coming out very recently. So knowing how VR is useful and how it can be used in different areas and domains is a big challenge, and people are trying to pursue that in many ways. Papers are coming out, but I think we are still not there because VR is still looked at as a fun experience, as a more like gaming experience. So getting over that and knowing the real benefit of VR is still fleeting, yes.
Because there's a kind of a very wow effect about VR right now. I mean, like, of course, it's more and more accessible. But for example, as a journalist, when I'm using VR, of course, like, for example, the New York Times experience is interesting because it's new and so on. Well, we did a great job in storytelling and stuff. But the more and more experience like that are going to be produced, the more and more people are going to get used to the medium, and the wow effect is going to fade. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen afterwards? When this kind of novelty side of the technology is going to pass?
Well, I have some thoughts, but I'm talking a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah, so
also let you others.
Yeah, so what I think I think like you're right, exactly. That's one of the main challenges when you present a novel like VR application or I don't know, like some content. It's like really hard to get people interested in the content in itself. In case like if they have never tried this for the first time, like they will just like care about the fact that I can turn my head and see the world, but they won't really care that they are watching I don't know like a documentary or something. And so it's like very interesting to see that, and I think there are many questions that need to be solved about like what kind of content works and what is not very suitable for VR. I'm not sure that has been really answered yet. I don't know if you have some clues about this.
No, I mean, well, my last question, I will open the Q&A to the public. In your wildest dream at night, when you dream about VR, because I'm pretty sure you're dreaming about VR and AR, how do you see the future? Like, how do you see the next step, but in 10 years, 20 years, and so on?
So I can give a thought.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking that BCIs are coming out, and very soon we might be able to integrate more of our thoughts into this kind of immersive environments very soon. So it would be hard to draw a line where I don't want others to know my thoughts, and they're able to, because technology has advanced so far that the brain waves are able to just go outside our boundaries that we want to keep, and I think that's where where we want to just limit the technology and we can't, and that would be, I don't know, like 10 or 20 years down the line, but that is a weird thing. I guess we might be facing very soon.
That would be cool. Mine's more mundane. So in your version, we would all be seamlessly experiencing in a virtual environment, maybe, which would be cool. I suspect, though, that what will happen is that it will be another tool to look at content, right? Like somebody asked me the other day, oh, so you think we're going to be all reading the newspaper in virtual reality? And it's like, no, that would be terrible. That would be the worst. But we still have radios, right? So we have all these different tools that we use to enjoy content, and I think virtual reality is going to be one of those tools, which doesn't mean that some people won't have it embedded in their heads the way we have our phones embedded in our hands. But I see it integrated into what we have already.
I see a lot of growth in augmented reality, I think, because virtual reality still, a lot of people feel, are kind of afraid of this immersiveness and feeling like you're away from your normal environment. And so I think augmented reality has so many possibilities because it's another way that you can interact with objects that are not really there, but also in the same way you feel you're still within your environment, and it's such a great way to get extra information. So I love the idea, for example, the application for the museum, and it's something that I think has been, a lot of companies have been trying to do with like Google and stuff, and like you're walking on the street and you can see, if you want to stop for coffee, go to this place. And I think those sort of applications will become part of our lives much more.
I definitely agree on that, the fact that the social aspect is very important, and you don't want someone who is like in his world maybe, and like the fact that with AR it's a bit like, okay, you have like you're playing your console in the family room and everybody can look, and it's not the same as like having your own headset. And, so yeah, I think also like I'm very like enthusiastic about new like AR technologies, but then again, like I think that it's kind of like blended. It's starting to blend together to some extent. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.